yourself. I am Jason Whitlock. That is Marcellus Wiley, that dude.
I'm sorry.
For what? Coming up, we'll tell you if UVA was lucky to win the title last night. But we start today with Aaron Rodgers and the Bleacher Report story published last week about Rodgers' relationship with the Packers and former head coach Mike McCarthy. Aaron Rodgers has responded to that story that painted his relationship with McCarthy as toxic from the outset and as the main reason the Packers have just one Super Bowl victory during Rodgers' career. Speaking to a radio station in Milwaukee, Rodgers labeled the article a hit piece and questioned the credibility of the sources quoted.
You know, the thing is about this article, it's not a mystery. This was a smear attack by, a writer looking to advance his career, talking with mostly irrelevant, bitter players who all have an agenda, whether they're advancing their own careers or just trying to stir old stuff up. The crazy thing is there's super slanted opinions in that piece stated as fact. And then there's quote-unquote facts, which are just outright lies. If I really dislike Mike that much, why would I re-sign? This idea that I had this grudge against him for years is absolutely ridiculous. It's just not true. I mean, where was that grudge in 10 when we won the Super Bowl? Where was that grudge when we won 19 games in a row? Because I will tell you this about Mike, and if you look at the comments I've made about him over the years, I love Mike McCarthy. Mike has been a huge part of my success in my career, and I've had some amazing moments on and off the field with Mike. We have had issues, no doubt about it. Any long relationship has issues. But the way that we dealt with those issues, Mike and I, was face-to-face.
All right, let me be clear. I like and respect Tyler Dunn, the author of the Bleacher Report story, and I like and respect and work with Greg Jennings, one of the on-the-record sources in the Bleacher Report story. But I'm sympathetic to Rodgers. He appears to be the kind of person who is strong-willed and comfortable with conflict. I'm that way. People like that are easily misunderstood and mischaracterized. The Bleacher Report story stated that Rodgers held a grudge against McCarthy because the San Francisco 49ers selected Alex Smith #1 overall in the 2005 draft. Rodgers was the 24th pick in that draft. McCarthy was the 49ers offensive coordinator in 2005. It's hard for me to believe that Rodgers held a grudge against McCarthy for a decision made by then 49ers head coach Mike Nolan and general manager Scott McCloughan. Here's what Rodgers had to say specifically about Jennings and former Packers tight end Jermichael Finley.
It bothers me that every time there's an article, it's the same two people. And if there's not an article about me, do you ever hear their name anywhere else? Do they get interviews with people? Are they out there making comments? Are they making the rounds on the shows? I would say probably not. So I would say, at what point do you move on? You talk about me being sensitive and petty. At what point do you move on or stop telling the same stories? Like, really? A conversation with Carlos Rodgers in the field making a joke about his situation? That's what you're going to hold on to?
Rodgers is on much shakier ground here. It's a mistake to dismiss the criticism of teammates that you work closely with for a significant period of time. We all know there are three sides to every story. All right, former Pro Bowl receiver TJ Houshmandzadeh joins Marcellus and I. Marcellus, I'll start with you. Who do you believe more here, Bleacher Report or Aaron Rodgers?
First, let me just say, scorched earth. Aaron Rodgers is going there. He's trying to protect a lot of people, and I think he's trying to protect the history and the exchanges he had with his coaches, his teammates, but I'm with Aaron Rodgers on this one. I will say this. Aaron Rodgers is highly intelligent, savvy, slighted, and unapologetic. I've had my own issues with Aaron Rodgers, and I've seen him avoid me certain situations, and I didn't think anything about it because I know who he was, I know who he is, and I know what he felt. And when you're a person like that, walking around apologizing for things is not necessarily a part of your DNA. So in a situation where, let's say, Greg Jennings, and Greg, you misconstrued my joke. I'm not going to apologize for my joke. I'm just going to say, oh, you felt a certain type of way. Let's get together. Or It's a joke. And I think he's living in that hemisphere where a lot of other people are not in that same hemisphere and they feel a certain way. Aaron Rodgers is not sitting here cleaning up his mess and anything he messes up. He's a guy that says, I do what I do. I've already thought about it. I'm highly calculated, and I will go forward. And you guys deal with it the way you want to deal with it. But stop being redundant with the same thing. Stop trying to increase the volume on the same song. Like, play another track. You got another track? And from what I've seen, I don't see his fingerprints. I don't see the evidence of Aaron Rodgers at the scene all the time of all these incidents. It's a lot of circumstantial talk, and it's gotten a little dated, and I'm with Aaron Rodgers on this one. Like, if you got something new, bring it. We'll talk about it. I probably won't apologize, but I'll move forward, and I'll move forward with a different wisdom. Until we see that place, it's kind of old, dead news.
I mean, it has to be some truth in the article. The guy's not going to spend this much time on it and not be some truth to it, but this is the first time Aaron Rodgers has actually come out and kind of defended himself, and it's like, man, I had enough, man. I got to get this off my chest. I got to let y'all know where I'm coming from. Now, you look at it from this perspective. If Greg Jennings, who I respect and we work with, if you hear your quarterback tell another DB on another team, hey, y'all need to come get him because he ain't going to be here next year. If I'm a receiver, I'm like, hold up. I'm pissed off about you, the quarterback. If you want me here, you can make sure that that happens. So anything that has happened prior to that, if I'm Greg, now I'm going to closely re-examine that and look into it like, it starts to make sense. For Aaron Rodgers, it's a joke. He probably didn't even think he said. He don't even remember saying it until Greg probably brought it up. And so he's looking at it from.
Would you address it right then in the moment, though? If I'm Greg and I'm bothered, why not say, Aaron, what the hell are you doing?
I would have addressed it after the game. If it's prior to the game, I'm not going to bring it up prior to the. I would address it after the game, like, bro, were you serious about that? And he would have said what he said, or what you talking about?
Yeah.
And we would have got it right there. But for Greg, he probably held it in and was like, oh, okay, this is probably, I realize I'm not going to be here. Greg didn't like it. I don't mind Greg saying what he said because that's how he feels. Now, Aaron Rodgers, you come out and say it's a joke. Well, once Greg said what he said a while ago about, you should have just said a long time ago, Greg, I'm sorry, man, that's a joke. Or if you took it the wrong way, since he's unapologetic, I didn't mean it that way, man. It was a joke, just having fun.
But he did mean it that way. And I think, first of all, the hit dog hollers, right? You know why? Because that hit Greg somewhere where Greg was like, damn. It's one thing to be, and I've been there on the top of the hill coming down, whatever the situation, I'm not going to be in San Diego next year, whatever the situation, and you're the man in the mirror, we have a great conversation. It's painful, but it hurts more when y'all are now ear hustling the same conversation. When TJ knows, when my coaches know, when I start hearing the whispers, when y'all don't laugh at the jokes the same, when y'all start sniping at me, that makes me feel even worse. And that's not on Aaron Rodgers to make him feel better. It's on him to feel better or play better to where there's no conversation. When Greg Jennings was getting it, say that same joke. Guess what Greg gonna say? Okay,
right, I'm gonna be here.
I'm gonna be here. What you talking about? But it's when you know there's a lot of truth in that one. That's the problem.
And again, I have a lot of respect for the Bleacher Report story. I talked about it last week, tweeted about how good I thought it was. And even saying that, because I've worked in the media and I've profiled people, I've been profiled, it's hard to get it all right. And so I think that Aaron Rodgers has a case here, and there's again, because even when I read the article initially, and this is not a criticism of Tyler, but it's just factual how I felt. I was like, are we really supposed to believe that Aaron Rodgers is so petty that he blames the offensive coordinator of the 49ers in 2005 for not drafting him? When Aaron Rodgers is smart, we contend, he knows the offensive coordinator ain't making that call.
Thank you.
It's the head coach and the general manager, and it's the owner. You know, when you talk about the #1 pick, a lot of voices have a say in that. 7th round, 6th round pick, yeah, the coach and the GM, y'all on your own. But the ownership has a stake in that. And so I just don't, that was hard for me to believe. And then, so I think for Aaron Rodgers, when you start a story with a misconception, it taints the rest of the story. Again, I've been profiled and been mischaracterized. And I'm a difficult person like Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to just spend my whole life explaining everything that I did. And it makes you hard to understand. And so I guess I'm glad Aaron Rodgers has done this. I will say this as we move to a little second layer. I do think there's some lessons for Aaron Rodgers to learn from all of this drama.